As a past Smooth 4 user, I've been waiting for a while for the follow-up, the new Xeon Smooth 5. And I had high expectations, I won't lie to you. My first impressions when I first opened the box were actually really good, and I thought they had hit the nail on the head. Looks like a solid gimbal, it does what a gimbal is supposed to do, and all in all, it seemed to tick most of the boxes if not all of them. And then I took it for a spin, used it in a couple of jobs, and I still think it's a good smartphone gimbal, but there is not a single review on YouTube pointing out the issues that this gimbal has. Now, can you work around them? Yes, absolutely. How good or not so good this gimbal is really depends on how many accessories you plan to use, if any at all. But look, stick around and I won't just tell you the good and the bad, but will actually show you, and then you can decide. So what's so good about this gimbal that makes it stand out from anything out there in the market today? Well, to start with, look at this. This is the most basic move a gimbal has to be able to do. If you have a gimbal that doesn't allow you to do this move, you've been ripped off. It's as simple as that. So right off the blocks, this gimbal already is, without even going through it, way ahead than most gimbals out there. In general terms, every other move is fluid and very smooth. Honestly, Xeon has done a really good job with this gimbal. You'll be happy to know that it can take up to 380 grams, which means that any heavy smartphones like the Samsung S21 or the iPhone 13 Pro Max, along with accessories like lenses, filters and whatnot, shouldn't be a problem. I often use this setup, an iPhone 13 Pro Max, a case, a Sandmark ultra-wide lens and a filter. It comes to around 375 grams and the gimbal can take it without a hitch. Now, if you plan to use a setup similar to this, please be careful with the weight of the case or the cage that you use or plan to use, because if you max out the rig's payload, it's likely because of the weight of the case. Balancing is really easy and I actually like the mount. It's sturdy and grippy but easy to open. You can literally be up and running in less than 5 seconds. The tilt axis bar has markings on, so it's really easy to know where the bar needs to be for the configuration that you're using. Such a simple little feature that can make your life so much easier. And one thing as well that I really like is that you can use this gimbal either in horizontal or vertical configuration. So for anyone that records vertical video, TikTok or Instagram content, this gimbal is actually brilliant. You literally have the same functionality whether you use it in horizontal or vertical configuration. My next video is a side-by-side comparison between the Smooth 5 and the G6 Max. So if you're still not convinced as to which one to buy after watching this video, you will find that video really interesting and enlightening. And you see, that's another reason to subscribe to this channel. Just hit that logo button in the right corner there. Another thing that is really good, and this is so often underestimated, is the fact that you can easily change the gimbal modes on the gimbal itself. It's super easy and you have a clear visual cue on the handle itself as to what mode you change into. You just press the mode button and you see at the top of the gimbal handle a thin LCD strip with the relevant mode that you change into. What's also cool is that if you double tap the mode button, you can go backwards, and it's those little details that make a piece of equipment brilliant. If you went past the mode you want, you can just tap twice and go back, rather than having to go through the entire cycle. Again, we're talking a second or two here, but sometimes you might have magic happening right in front of your eyes, and having those extra 1 or 2 seconds can be the difference between getting it on camera or not. Now, in terms of size and build, well, let me tell you, it's definitely lightweight, and although it's mostly plastic, I wouldn't say it feels cheap, but I wouldn't say either that feels premium. It's sort of middle of the road, which makes me wonder a bit about the quality of the components inside. In terms of size, it's definitely larger than other gimbals like the DJI OM5, but it's also fairly compact. Not the kind of thing that you want to carry in your pocket though. And to my surprise, and also to give you a sense of size, It's almost identical to the Feiyutech G6 Max. So if you're looking for a gimbal with the word compact attached to it, this may not be it. But the build is good, and I really like the comfortable grippy handle that it has. It makes it quite comfortable to hold and use. And one feature that is brilliant is the fact that the motors are lockable. So you can easily carry it in your backpack or even in your hands with the phone mounted on without having it dangling as it happens with most of the gimbals. But saying that, the mechanism that holds the rotating axis at the bottom doesn't feel like good components, so I can easily see this snapping with just a little bit of force or an accidental push. I'm always baffled at how little thought manufacturers pay to the transportation of the rig once it's all set up, because once you're all set, you don't want to be taking the phone on and off. The zoom or focus wheel, which is sort of a trademark of the Zhiyun Smooth Gimbal range, works flawlessly. Integration with third-party apps like Filmic Pro is not there yet, but I'm sure it will be soon. The question you need to ask yourself is, will you actually ever use it? Because nice as it is, I never zoom halfway through a take, and focus is usually done by the camera app, so I don't know. I'm not sure how much people will actually ever use the wheel, to be honest. Now, using the gimbal with the Zhiyun app, the ZY Cami, is really smooth and responsive, and overall it feels really nice. The app is simple and easy to use, and whether you like it or not, you need to download and install it to register the gimbal when you first turn it on. The whole process is a bit of a pain, but at least you only have to do it the first time, and that's that. This time around, the app is miles ahead from what Zhiyun had before. Way better and easy to use. You get both auto and manual settings with total control over the ISO, shutter speed, resolution, white balance, and so on. The layout is nice, and it sort of reminds me a bit, or a lot I should say, of DJI's Mimo app. Obviously, if you're used to Filmic Pro and the range of different resolutions, color spaces, ProRes codecs, and all the settings that you can choose from, well, using the Zhiyun app will probably feel quite limited. You might just use the Cami app for time lapses and navigate the settings, because in all fairness, the Cami app is nowhere near as complete as Filmic Pro. And to be honest with you, I expect most people to use Filmic Pro with this gimbal rather than the Zhiyun app, other than for time lapses. Now, if time lapses is your thing, this gimbal is really good. You get 5 keyframeable points, and that is more than enough. Normally, you don't need to use more than 2, so having those extra points might give you some extra flexibility. For the kind of time lapses that most people do, 2 points usually is enough. You get the standard adjustments for the interval and duration of the time lapse, and also a reading of how long the playback will be at normal speed. All in all, it's a really good setup, and the gimbal is sturdy enough to handle some crosswind, which is a problem with some lightweight gimbals when doing time lapses, where the smallest breeze makes the whole thing shake like it's on a dance floor. There is one nice little thing that you can do in the Cami app that I haven't seen in any other camera app. You have the ability to have 2 autofocus points rather than the single one that you get in most third-party camera apps. This is really cool because you can compose your shot to have something that you need in focus somewhere in the frame other than in the middle, and set a focus point to that area. With the Cami app, you get the middle autofocus box plus a yellow box that you can place anywhere in the frame, and you can actually do some really smooth auto-racking focus. I think this is something many people might actually find useful and might justify using the app, at least for some shots. Now, in terms of settings, you get the ability to adjust the speed of the joystick and the zoom width. Finally, there is a gimbal that when you set the joystick to slow, you actually get slow movement. Now, if you need it fast, trust me, it can go pretty fast as well. But I imagine that most people watching this review will probably have it set to slow. 2 things I found really annoying though, which I hope they addressed in a future firmware update. The first one is the fact that the speed setting that you set the joystick to doesn't stay in memory all the time. So every time you turn off the gimbal and reboot it, randomly, might switch back to the default medium. And you then need to go into the Cami app and reset it to slow. This is something I hope Zhiyun can address soon because it can get really annoying. The second one is the time it takes for the Zhiyun Kami app to launch and be ready to shoot. I could literally go make myself a coffee and come back and this thing would still be booting up. This is genuinely off-putting. There is no excuse as to why they can't get the process down to just a second or two, which in this day and age, I think is not acceptable. Now, gimbal modes. You get the usual ones, FPV or POV, follow, tilt lock and full lock, plus the inception or vortex mode, and they're all really well implemented. Some of you have asked me about giving some examples as to when you would use this or that mode. Well, you might want to do something that requires panning, but you do not want to get distracted with the tilting going out of whack, like for instance city walks. So the tilt lock can be great, and you can use the joystick to move up or down occasionally if you need, but you know that for the most part, your tilting is locked whatever you do. Follow mode is fantastic because it gives you full control over the gimbal, and whatever you point it to, it will follow and frame it. This is actually the mode that I use the most, and I talk later in the video about a nagging issue that some people might find annoying. Full lock is good for when, let's say, you do a straight tracking shot or a review shot and you don't want the gimbal to do any weird movement to throw off the framing of the shot, which happens a lot actually. Using full lock is actually the best way to consistently get the best results for this type of shots. And POV mode is a bit more complex and will give you a very unique type of shot that actually mimics our head's movement. When would you use it? When you want to create a feeling of anxiety or dizziness in the viewer, or a weird and wacky stylized shot. The inception or vortex mode, as Zhiyun call it, can be very creative but can also be very annoying if you do it fast or too often. The good thing with this gimbal is that if you set the joystick to slow pace, it goes really nice and slow. Trust me, you don't want this effect in medium or fast speed. You could make it even slower by recording at 30 or 60 frames per second and then slow it down in post, and that will give you really good results. It goes without saying that everything I've talked about so far in this review will work with either horizontal or vertical configuration, which is pie in the sky with most of the gimbals, if not all, because most of them pretty much disregard vertical filming altogether. Trust me, if you shoot vertical, this is the gimbal you want, because all the functionality and features that work with horizontal filming will also work with vertical, and that is very cool and unique. Now, if you're into vlogging and want to get the best possible result out of your smartphone, you want to use the rear lenses, not the front selfie lens. I know the temptation is there to use the front selfie lens because you can see yourself on the screen, but the quality is abysmal when you compare it to the main rear lens at the back of the phone. Obviously, you can still use the selfie lens if you want to and you find that easier, but what is so cool about the Smooth 5 is that if you tap 3 times at the back of the gimbal, the whole thing spins around, so you can film with the rear lenses without having to mount the gimbal in weird ways as you have to do with other gimbals. This is really cool, and no other gimbal in this price range does it that I'm aware of. If you want to see yourself, well, naturally it's not going to be on the screen and you just have to sort of guess where the camera is pointing at. But most people vlog with the ultra wide, so it would be pretty difficult to get the framing off, to be honest, because the field of view is so large. The ability to use the rear lenses for vlogging is amazing, especially if you want to record your vlogs with the new cinematic mode on the iPhone 13 range. I'm telling you, you want to use the rear lens, not the selfie one. I couldn't stress enough how huge the difference is in quality when using the rear lens over the selfie one. In perfect lighting conditions, the difference may not be so obvious, but the moment light starts to dim, even if just slightly, you can clearly see that the standard lens in your smartphone is so much better. I recently did a review of the iPhone 13 Pro Max, if you're interested on it, in which I go in detail about why it's such an amazing camera phone for content creators in general. I also did a separate dedicated video about the cinematic mode on the iPhone 13 range, with 10 tips and tricks on how to get the best out of it. You can see a link appearing on the screen now, and I think you'll find it useful because everything I discuss on those videos totally relates to getting the best results when using a gimbal. Now, if you buy the Xeon combo with the Smooth 5, you get the magnetic LED light and color filters. And let me tell you something, it's actually quite bright, way more than I expected when I first saw the tiny size of that thing, which is amazing. You could attach a second one to the gimbal if you think you need more light, but for vlogging, a single one is probably enough because you can easily dial up or down the intensity with the jog wheel on the handle, and you can see for yourself that it gives you a lot of light, especially for nighttime filming, definitely more than enough. You can use it either for vlogging or for standard filming, which is then when I think having a second one might actually be handy because you can literally light the subject at a relatively fair distance. But I think this is mostly useful for vlogging, and I think the single LED light that comes with the combo, it's probably more than enough. Is it worth upgrading to the combo kit? I don't know. If you feel you'll use the LED light at some point, like shooting at night or in low light, then yes. Otherwise, I don't think so. The gimbal and the mini tripod is all you really need, and to be honest, the case it comes with it, nice as it is, might be useless for most people. It's a nice touch and certainly good quality, but I'm not sure it's that useful. But hey, what I might not find useful, you might find useful, so you decide. Is there anything bad about this gimbal then? Well, yes, this is not a perfect gimbal. In this price range, such a thing is not going to happen. One thing that a lot of people will find irritating beyond belief, at least I do, is the fact that there is no comfortable way to record sound externally on your phone. When you mount the phone to the gimbal, it has to be right up against the motors, and there is no room for the cable to be plugged in. You can slide out the phone enough to fit the cable, but what happens if you do that is that it will stick out way too far out, and if you use a heavy phone with a lens or filters on, I don't know, personally I just don't feel too confident using it that way. Myself, I wouldn't even try because I don't feel it's a safe way to use the gimbal, and I don't want the motors to give way halfway through a shot, or worse, things falling to the ground. It might just be okay if you use the phone with a lightweight case and without any accessories, but if you shoot outdoors, you need ND filters, so I don't know, it's your decision. I personally recommend using a small portable recorder like the Zoom H1N, which is what I use myself. I record the audio externally and then sync it in post, which these days is really easy and you can do it in just 2 clicks. A couple of small other kinks, you can hear a bit of the motors inside when you put a heavy load or push it right up to its limit, which again makes a stronger case for recording your audio with a clip mic attached to a small recorder like the H1N, rather than having a mic mounted on the camera or the gimbal itself. Again, test yourself and see what works with your setup. The final nagging issue is that if you are in follow mode and you tilt slightly the rig, let's say 30 degrees, which is the way you should operate the gimbal so all 3 axes are working, when you double tap to reset it, it will go back to the reset position as if the gimbal was fully upright. And this is a real bummer because I would have imagined this gimbal would reset to the horizontal plane rather than to the upright position. To me, these 3 issues are things that I could easily work around, but I hope Xeon can address them in a firmware update in the future. Essentially, what I want from a gimbal is to operate as a gimbal is supposed to, and this gimbal does that and does it well. There may be a couple of annoying things, yes, but look, it is what it is. You get a massive bang for your money here, and filming is all about adapting to what the tools and equipment you have can actually do. So just be a little creative and flexible, and trust me, you'll be totally fine. This is a good gimbal. For heavy smartphones, it's a no-brainer. If you buy this gimbal, you have something that will probably last you for a good few years. It's easy to use, and you get all the functionality that you need. It will be soon integrated with Filmic Pro, so you'll be able to use the control panels at the front with the app, if that's something that you need. Myself, I just find it simpler to just tap on the screen anyway. So even now, with no integration, I can easily work with Filmic Pro because the main thing for me is to be able to change the modes without having to use the Xeon app. I can do that now, so to me and probably for most people, integration or no integration with Filmic Pro makes no difference whatsoever. Overall, you'll be very happy if you buy the Smooth 5. It works as a gimbal is expected to behave, and you can even add a few accessories to it because it has a 1/4-inch thread on one of the sides. Honestly, you get so much for what you pay. Yes, it's a little bit more expensive than other gimbals, but it's so far ahead that I'm telling you, it's well worth it. Do I recommend it? Hell yes. Will it substitute my G6 Max as my main gimbal for smartphones? To be honest with you, I don't know. You might be surprised to know that they are very similar in size and weight, and if anything, the Smooth 5 is a bit bulkier, which I wasn't expecting, to be perfectly honest. There are certainly things that I really like about the Smooth 5, but there are also a lot of things that I really like about the G6 Max. For most people, the Smooth 5 will be all they need. If you plan to use a heavy phone with a case and then add lenses and filters and possibly even a lens hood, maybe the Smooth 5 is not for you, and you need something that can handle a higher payload, like the G6 Max. But if you use the gimbal with a phone, maybe one filter, nothing else, this will be a very good gimbal, no question about that. It all comes down to each person's shooting style really. If you want to get some inspiration on some cool and unique shots that you can do with this gimbal, check out this video where I give you 10 cool and creative ways to use a smartphone and a gimbal. And this other one up here, the first of a 2-part series where I give you 20 tips to get the best cinematic results using any smartphone. And with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. Like it if you found it helpful, it helps with the YouTube algorithm, and I'll see you in the next video.